Welcome back to Third Man In. I'm Zack Phillips, and in tonight's post-game stream, we're going to be breaking down game number 49 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, defeating the Dallas Stars here tonight, 5-4, moving to 26, 15, and 8 on the season. Following up what was a pretty poor performance the other night in terms of some crappy results off of some kind of miscues and some failed assignments and some pee-wee plays, as described by Sheldon Keefe. This Maple Leafs team follows it up here tonight against a pretty tough Dallas team. Mind you, they are coming off a back-to-back off of one which relied upon 48 saves from Jake Ottinger. But nonetheless, this is a pretty good Dallas team coming in here tonight. You don't really know what you're going to get out of the Maple Leafs. As Forrest Gump would say, that his mom said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. That's how I feel when I turn on the TV every night and I watch this Leafs team. I'm looking at it going, you know what? There's an opportunity here to respond for the Leafs. You've got called out by your coach. You've had an extra day off. You stayed in Toronto. You're hosting the Stars here tonight. You got Scott Wedgwood in net for the Stars on the other side, and they're coming in off a back-to-back, but yet every single one of those things that I just described about this Leafs team and a reason for them to respond and a reason for them to come into this game and dominate or potentially win this game here tonight is also a reason why you'd almost expect this Leafs team to lose, and yet they find a way to get it done here. And they had to make it a little bit dramatic. You get the Stars tie that one up halfway through the third period off of what was a failed assignment in the offensive zone, leading back to the defensive zone, giving Dadonov a breakaway. Giordano has to basically yank on him, which leads to a penalty shot, and he scores relatively easy in tying the game. And then the Leafs just said, you know what? It's time for us to win this game. You go down the other way. Matthews has the puck up at the blue line, makes a nifty little pass down into Marner in a soft spot in the zone, who finds a way to bury there. And then, basically immediately after, John Tavares comes down. Nice little cut move into the inside, drops that one off to Nylander, who buries his second of the game. And then, now it's 5-3, and yet the Dallas Stars find a way to score and make it a one-goal game and make it pretty interesting to close this one out. So we'll break down this entire thing, this entire game, everything that happened. If people want to call into the show here tonight, please send me a message. I'm happy to take calls here. I want to know how people feel. You can message me either on Twitter at ZackPhillips, ZackPhill, or on Instagram at Zack Phillips, ZackPhillips_, or if you've got Discord and that's how you'd prefer to message me, you can fire a message over there as well. I will be checking Discord throughout the course of the show, checking everywhere that you can message me. So if you do want to call in, let me know, and we'll find a way to get you in here, and we can discuss this game here tonight that the Leafs do find a way to win against the Dallas Stars. I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the chat in regards to the bottom six and the lack of scoring that we're getting, and I get it. I don't necessarily disagree. There was another tweet here from Jonas Siegel tonight that says, Leafs, our last 10 goals for the Leafs: Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Tavares, Marner, Benoit, Matthews, Tavares. That's all your top three forwards. That's all top four forwards. Those are your top four paid forwards, your top dogs on this team, the guys who are eating up the salary. And that's a very top-heavy scoring outside of Simon Benoit, who scored his first goal in 67 games in that game the other night that he did score against the Jets. So, In that regard, it's not great. The one thing I always kind of lean towards or kind of look back on when I'm thinking about some of this stuff is like, it's something Brian Hayes says. Jeff O'Neill reiterates it as well. If you guys watch Overdrive, you can hear it throughout many other teams or organizations, media, whenever they're talking about their top teams, is like, look, it doesn't really matter what the bottom guys do, because if your top guys aren't your best players, then you're not going to have a shot. And that's basically the case for the playoffs as well. And that's kind of the argument that I constantly make in the playoffs, is people say, well, you didn't get enough depth. You didn't get enough depth scoring. You're not getting enough out of your bottom six, and fair enough. But that being said, when it gets to playoff time and you see this team perform when it comes to the playoffs, one of the things that drops off the most is top end scoring. So it's one thing to say, oh my God, we have too much top end scoring, you're not getting the depth here now. It's another thing in the playoffs when those guys go missing. This is just a kind of a bit of a catastrophe in general here, because you've now got Bertuzzi. He's got like 1 goal since November. Domi's got 1 goal in his last however many games. You're not really getting much production out of your bottom 6 outside of really Nick Robertson, who Sheldon Keefe still doesn't seem to love, doesn't love him in the lineup, finds his way back to the press box, comes back, scores, and then finds his way back to the press box. The whole thing is kind of confusing at this point. I mean, I wish I had an answer for you guys on what to do here. I would love to get more production out of the bottom 6. I'd love to get more goal scoring. The God's honest answer about what I think is going on here with this team is I don't think that the bottom 6 is performing poorly. I think that the actual point production that's coming of it and the stats that go on the sheet and go onto the NHL.com, that people wake up in the morning and comment on the video and say, another night, another no goal by Max Domi. Another night without a goal by Bertuzzi or Knies. Like, okay, yeah, I get it, fair enough. But at the same time, I'm watching these guys. It feels like they're playing well. I don't feel like Knies is out of the play. I feel like Bertuzzi is creating things. He's in the mix. He's a part of all of this. And then Domi, on the other hand, I mean, he's a playmaker. That's kind of what he is, but you just need more production around him. And I think a guy like Jarn Krok, especially jumping back in here, will be able to help with some of that. But it's just, I'm watching them. They don't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like they're a step behind. It doesn't feel like they're getting abused by other bottom 6 lines out there. They're just not scoring right now. And then on top of that, yeah, I understand that we're going to look at Knies and Bertuzzi and be like, why aren't those guys scoring? The guys beside them are. So it's like, okay, yeah, there's 2 ways of looking at this. And right now, I'm going to personally take the more positive side of it, where you can look at Knies and say, why isn't he scoring? It's like, well, the guy beside him is on pace for 70, and Marner's on pace for over 90, and yeah, it'd be nice to have them score a little bit more, but he's not holding back the line. They're not holding back the line. And then when it comes to Bertuzzi, he's not holding back the line. And in fact, I think both guys are kind of doing some of the intangible things away from the puck that are actually needed. It's more just, yeah, you want to string together and kind of make it a nice mix, a nice blend of, okay, Bertuzzi goes out there and wins corner battles, pisses guys off and gets to the net front, causes scrums, but then he gets an assist or he gets a goal on the end of it. And then same thing for Knies, because the way that those guys forecheck, the way that those guys win battles along the boards, break up plays, I think that these guys are just in a position where they're doing all of the other things you always want their top 6, those companions, those counterparts on that line to do. Like when you look at Alex Kerfoot, he does too much of what the other guys did, and he was playing on that line, like on that second line. When you put Calle Jarnkrok in there, I like Calle Jarnkrok as well, but he also does too much of what those guys do, whereas Knies and Bertuzzi are guys that do the gritty part of the game. They're the guys who go into the corner and take the hit or make the hit. They're the guys who go in and stir the pot up. They're the guys who go in and break up a play to cause something to happen your way. You do want more points for those guys. You do want more point production out of them. 100%. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but I'm just getting very tired of seeing this narrative of like, ship them out of town because they don't score goals. Like, fuck off. Honestly, I mean, I'm not even going to hold punches with it. Like, if that's where you're kind of coming to with this, like, we might as well have just gone back to Dubas, get Malgin back here, get Kerfoot back here, get Pierre Engvall back here, because we're just going to skate up and down the ice and be a fast little dainty team that doesn't really do much else. So I'm just kind of at the point where it's like, you know what? I'm out on it. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to hear that anymore, because some of that is insane. There are so many other things that these guys actually bring to the table that is so necessary for not only 82 games of the regular season, but those people who are sitting here saying, get this guy out of town, when playoffs roll around, I mean, if this team makes the playoffs, which hopefully that they will, but when the playoffs roll around, you're going to be sitting there going, oh my God, Zach, you were right. My bad. Those are the guys we need, because you know what happened last year? All these teams were taking looks at Tyler Bertuzzi saying, should we go get that guy? And guess what? The Boston Bruins didn't win, but I'll tell you one thing for certain. It was not Tyler Bertuzzi's fault that they didn't win last year. It was not their fault that they lost to the Florida Panthers in the first round, because that guy was fucking excellent. And that guy fit into their system. He fit into the way that they played, and he fits into playoff style hockey. Him and Knies, those are the pieces you want here. So enough of send Knies to the Marlies, enough of of Bertuzzi needs to be traded. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. The conversation is useless. Watch the way that those guys impact the game here tonight. Outside of actually points on the sheet, which I still understand and I'm not trying to downplay, it's more just watch the other parts of their game and what they're bringing. I'm happy with those guys. I was just seeing it in the chat. It needs to be addressed. And if people want to debate it here tonight, people want to talk about it, send me a message. You guys can call in. Also, we are going to take a call here. I see someone who wants to call in. They've already messaged me. So while we're getting ready for this caller to come in, don't worry about it. We will continue to answer things in the chat, but you guys can also send me messages if you want to go next in line. If you also want to give your insights onto things that are going on. But there was something that was sent. Max, I didn't miss it. I didn't forget about it. I'm sorry. I was in a bit of a heater, but we do have a super chat here. Super chat from our guy, Max Entius Decimus. Max, thank you. I appreciate you, Max, for the super chat. Max says, Benoit fan club super chat, extend now. Look, you guys can let me know if this is an insane thought, if this is an insane take. I was thinking about this during the game. Everyone was pretty pissed off that Tree Living didn't re-sign Shen. And reality is that I think the money that he signed for in Nashville, if I was him and if I was in the GM spot here in Toronto, I would not have spent that money on Luke Shen either. I don't know whether or not he would have been willing to take somewhat of a discount off of the money he got from Nashville. Like, I don't know. I didn't get to have that conversation with him or his agent. I don't know if he would have been willing to take off $250K or $500K, whatever. I don't know. But the thing is, everyone was in outrage saying, like, why couldn't you have just brought back Luke Shen? You spent the money on Klingberg, and that was a mistake. You know what? It was a mistake. Whether you're happy with it or not, that money's gone. And looks like Klingberg's undergoing surgery. He's going to try to make a return to the NHL next year. Good for him. I wish him nothing but the best. But that money's off our books. That money is essentially now sitting there as a piece that can be used to add players to trade for or whatever you might need if you're going to bring guys up from the Marlies or the whole circus of guys going up, coming on IR, going off of IR, like whatever it is, you've got some of that money to play with now. So that whole situation is kind of gone out the window. You don't have to worry about it. Look, Simon Benoit came here and proved himself on a PTO. Actually, you know what? I'm going to fact check myself on that. That just came off the tongue. I believe he was on a PTO. I might be wrong, but give me a second here. Let me make sure this is correct. Simon Benoit signing. Oh, okay. It looks like it wasn't a PTO. That's my bad. That's on me. That's on me. You know what? Hands up. That's on me. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I said, I don't think it was a PTO. That's on me. It was not a PTO. Just a signing. Look, you signed this guy to a cheap contract. He's fought. Yeah, Gregor was on the PTO. Thank you, Mario Kart. Appreciate it. I knew there was a PTO in there somewhere. It was not Benoit. You sign him. You say, prove yourself. He doesn't make the team out of training camp. And yet he's become this incredible story of a guy who not only fought his way into the lineup, but he gets into the lineup and kind of earns the trust of Sheldon Keefe, earns the trust of the D coach. But I think more importantly than that, he's earned the trust of his D partner and Jake McCabe. Watch the way that the two of those guys play together. Jake McCabe looks confident. He looks comfortable. He looks like he's really able to just play his game and be just kind of one with the game that's going on, which has kind of allowed Jake McCabe to take a step up in his level of play this season, because what we saw out of him in the playoffs a little bit, what we saw out of him to start this season, it looked like there was a lack of comfortability. Maybe it was because of his D partner, maybe he didn't trust the guy, maybe it was just adjusting to Toronto and it was going to get there anyways, but you obviously saw all this stuff out of McCabe that you said, okay, yeah, there's all these positives that he brings to the game, but now that he's settled into this role with Benoit, now that they can play these matchups, now that they're playing with the first line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, like Keefe is doing everything he can to get them out on the ice together, you're starting to see McCabe's game start to elevate. You're starting to see Benoit's game elevate. And now tell me this. Would you have gone and paid Luke Schenn all that money when it feels like we've kind of just got our own Luke Schenn within this system? A younger Luke Schenn, a guy who was insanely hungry to get his contract, to get a spot into the lineup, to stay in the lineup. And on top of that, Luke Schenn was beloved here when he got traded here last year. He was beloved by the fan base. He was beloved by his teammates. You know who else is right now? Simone Benoit. This guy is a fan favorite. All he does is play simple hockey. Blocks shots, finishes checks, gets the puck out of the zone. Like there's no overstick handling. Yeah, there's going to be a fumble fuck every now and then where you're going to make a bad pass or you're going to turn the puck over, whatever. You're just going to mishandle it because he's not as great at handling the puck at the speed of some of these other guys. But everything else that he's doing is fairly positionally sound. And he basically just says, don't ask me to do anything else because I can only play Simone Benoit hockey. So don't tell me to do these extra things like Morgan Riley or TJ Brody or whatever, skating with the puck and doing all these offensive things because I'm not. So now you bring in a guy like Simone Benoit, you save a ton of money. I don't know. Maybe this is an insane take, but I just keep looking at this as like, okay, you lost Schenn. That's the kind of player that you want. I wouldn't have paid that money. It was the same situation for me with Lyubushkin where people were fighting saying like, you got to keep Lyubushkin, you got to bring back Lyubushkin. And then truthfully, I'm sitting there just going, I wouldn't have paid that money. I wouldn't have paid that money. So now where you're sitting here looking at this, looking at the way that these guys have this set up with this decor, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with Benoit, and I'm fine with the Schenn thing. Yeah, and Rob, RJWI, our guy. Shout out Rob being in the chat here. I think it's one of the first times so far this season, but Rob bringing up a good point. We saw it firsthand at the game. It's simple hockey, it's smart hockey, it's safe hockey. We got a guy on the line who's going to love this player. He's going to help us break things down. He's going to help us break down what went on over the All-Star break, what went on leading up to the All-Star break, and he's going to help us break down what we've seen over the last couple of days. Let's hit the animation and bring him in here.
Okay, are you ready? Let's go! Don't go change it. Do it your way, go down blazing. Don't go change it. Do it your way, go down blazing. Sugar, spice, everything nice. Have a little class. And do it right. I gotta say the way I feel.
That's right.
Buttercup, this is serious stuff. I love the people. You ready? Go. I don't get enough time in this show. I love the people. How's it going? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. How you doing?
Lovely to look at and delightful to see.
Love the hat. A wise guy, eh? You look good, really. You look good. Don't go change it. Do it your way. Go down blazing. Don't go change it. Do it your way. Go down blazing. Doing that one for the old grapes. Go down blazing.
Welcome back to the show, the man, the myth, the legend, all the way from Japan. Hopefully he's feeling well, off school today, off work today because he's got COVID. But you know him in the chat as Gordon Graham. Welcome to Gord's Corner. Gourd, how's it going?
Hi, good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu.
Gourd, I'm going to learn how to say it because every time you do, I know you're saying good morning because it is good morning for you. It is nighttime for me here, but I got to just learn how to say it so I don't butcher it when you come on, and I'm going to hit you with it, but you're not going to expect it, all right?
Okay. I'll give you the first part. The first part, just think of the state, Ohio.
Okay, Ohio.
And actually the Japanese shorten it to Ohio. That's it, Ohio. And then
they just say Ohio?
Yeah, they just say Ohio. Yeah, Ohio, Ohio. So that's when you know somebody, right? If you're friendly with someone, you just say Ohio. You know, it's like, right. What's up? Or morning instead of good morning, right?
Okay.
And then the rest is gozaimasu. Gozai. Like go, whatever your team is. Imagine your team is Zai, gozaimasu. Ohayou gozaimasu.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Ohayou gozaimasu. There we go.
That's excellent. Excellent.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
Ohio gozaimasu.
All right, Gourd. Ohio gozaimasu.
All right. Good morning and good evening, chat. Nice good evening. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into it.
All right,
So
well, Gourd, I want to start off here because this is
okay.
hot in the chat right now. I'm in love with the guy. I tweeted out. If you're not following me on Twitter as well, by the way, follow me on Twitter at Zack Phillips, ZackPhill. But I tweeted out like I love Simone Benoit. It's for like the simplest reasons, right? He's not flashy. He just does the simple things. He does the right things. He's not going to blow you away with defensive play. Like you're not watching this guy who's like a Norris caliber defenseman by any stretch of the imagination, but he just does the right thing. It feels like every time he's just in the right place. He's got an active stick. He's hitting guys. He's pretty good at shutting guys down defensively. He closes gaps. Like it just feels like this is the kind of defenseman you are looking for when you're looking at your bottom guys and filling in a cup like your decent minutes on a nightly basis, taking against higher end matchups. Like where are you at with Simone Benoit? And you kind of falling into the same boat as I am here with how much we love the guy?
Absolutely adore the man. Absolutely adore that guy's hockey. I mean, everything you said, boxes out the net front. He's tough in front of the net, hard along the boards, wins those boards battles, takes away center ice really well, has a good gap. He's got that length, so he's got that good gap. He'll seal the boards where other guys will let guys slip in along the boards and gain entries. He's nasty. Oh man, I'm praying that they re-up this guy. I'm praying that like we talked about this last time. Like, would you, between like the Bertuzzi and Domi's, like, would you rather put, say, would you re-sign him for like 3 years for $2.5 million? Is that too rich for a number 6 guy? I don't think so, because for me, what does this team lack? It lacks that toughness. It lacks that bite. They definitely lack defensive defensemen. Jesus, Brody's a tire fire. Brody is a detriment. That guy, every time the guy's on the ice, I just want to puke. But every time Benoit's on the ice, I mean, old school guy like me, just, cut off that ice, seal off that board, and don't just seal it off lightly. Seal it off with a paycheck at the end. Beautiful. Yeah. I love the guy. I absolutely love the guy. So for me, re-up the guy for $2.5 million for 3 years. Make the guy happy. He's earned it, and he's a guy who's going to keep on earning it, I'm sure. I see a little bit of progression in the guy's handling of the puck as well. I don't know if it's playing with the Leafs and their flow system or whatever, but he seems to be getting better and better with the puck as well. He had a giveaway today trying to go blue line to blue line in the neutral zone where he coughed up one play. But those plays are going to happen. Hopefully they don't happen on the consistent basis that they do with Brody. But yeah, I'm fully on board, as everybody, I'm sure, in the chat and everybody in Leaf Nation is. That guy is just something else. Gotta love the guy. And stepping up for teammates, everything. The guy just, oh man, this is what the Leafs need, man. This is definitely what the Leafs need. And this is the kind of guy they should be going and looking after. They should be looking to draft guys like this. It's time the Leafs started looking to draft some big, aggressive, tough defensemen. It's time. It's past due time. Anyway, good pickup by Tree Living. Thank God.
Yes, very, very good. I mean, I'm looking at like some of the other contracts out there. It's obviously going to be somewhat dependent on what the cap goes up by. Now, I think if you hit 2.5, it's probably too rich for this Leafs team. I'm going to be real honest with you there, just because even look at next season, right, Gord? Like you're going to have now, Marner is going to be his 10-point whatever it is, 9.3. Nylander 11.5. Tavares the 11. Matthews 13.25. Like, you're hitting all four of those guys into double digits. Your biggest discount contract really at this point is going to be on Morgan Riley based on what he signed at previously and what he's going to be at next year as the cap goes up, and then years after that, which is crazy because there's a lot of people who were up in arms about that contract when it was signed. But I think 2.5 might cap you out. He might get that money elsewhere, but I think it might cap you out with the Leafs. I think you're probably looking closer to like 2 as your highest that you could go here in Toronto, just based on even what you could fit. But I mean, open market.
Well,
like, I'm looking at Luke Shen. He got 3 years.
Rather than a UFA, right? He's an RFA, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, but it could be the same thing as what happened with Samsonov, where the Capitals weren't going to sign him, and then the Leafs were the ones who came in over the top and ended up paying him for that year. So, like, yeah, I mean, look.
Do you let him walk? Do you let him walk for that 5? Like, the need that they have is him, right? Do you let your need walk for $500,000 instead of, like, you could save money on Bertuzzi or Domi, can't you?
Yeah.
What's more
I mean,
important?
I don't know. I'm not really like a cap guy as much as like being able to project some of that stuff. It's more just like, I think you're going to be in a tighter position going into next year with all those guys being in there. So it's going to be a little bit tough. He is the RFA. I think you probably qualify him. I don't think like your qualifying offer is going to be very high. I don't know. You gave him an opportunity here as well, and he worked out. So maybe he'll have some leniency to kind of come back here. But yeah, I mean, as far as it goes for Simon Benoit, I think it's universal at this point that he's loved. I'm gonna ask you a question. You kind of briefly touched on it. We'll get into it, but before I even give any thoughts, 2 things. First and foremost, I'm gonna ask the people who are watching right now who haven't already to hit the like button if you haven't. Subscribe here to the channel. I appreciate all the support. And then as well, I'm gonna get into this because we're going to slide off of the D topic. I'm sure it'll come back up at some point, but there is a super chat here, and it's kind of going in the direction that I wanted to head. Super chat from Jeff McKay. Jeff, I appreciate it. Now, Gourd, answering this, I'm going to be a little bit on the side of Jeff here. I'm not looking for you to agree. If you disagree, feel free, because the chat has felt pretty open about disagreeing with me on this one over the last little while. But Jeff's saying, is it just me or has Tyler Bertuzzi looked way better the last month, even though the puck won't go in? Gourd, look, I've been going to fight for this guy like tooth and nail, basically, over probably the last couple of weeks. There's some people who are heavily on the trade Bertuzzi, get him the hell out of here train right now. And regardless of what you think they should do with him in the offseason as a UFA and what he might demand and whether or not you'd be willing to pay for it, am I out to lunch to think like the impact that this guy has on the game outside of points or not having points as he's had over the last little while is so much more impactful than actually putting points on the board? Like, I don't know. Obviously, I want those points to come. I've said it at the beginning. I said it in the last show. I will continue to say it because I don't think people in the chat are wrong. I think that he needs to start producing. Like, you're playing in the top 6. You need more than what you have right now. But the way that he's playing, the intensity that he brings, with the fact that we know he's going to be a playoff style guy, he goes into the corner, it goes into corners, wins battles, kind of stirs things up, opens space for his line mates. Like, do you not think that this is a valuable guy? And would you agree with Jeff here that he's looked better over the last month, even despite the puck not going in the net? Like, I've kind of been in that same position as well, because there was a period of time where I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's just not playing well. Basically now, since mid-December, late December to today, I would say that Bertuzzi's level of play has picked up. That puck just isn't going in right now.
Well, I'm on a roller coaster when it comes to Bertuzzi, right? I'm up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And just like a typical Leaf fan, right? I get frustrated when I'm watching the hockey games. And like last game, I'm just thinking this is just a 500 hockey team. Like Keefe said, yeah, they played good enough to win, but just poorly enough to lose, right? And that's basically been
That's the
MO for
season.
pretty much of the season, right? And I'm thinking, well, this team is definitely not going to go 4 rounds of hard playoff hockey. So this guy on a 1-year, $5 million contract, and I get everything he does, and I'm fully on board with you in terms of all of the little things that the guy does in terms of, causing havoc in front of the net, getting in on the forecheck, all of those things. But on the other hand, he can't stick handle the puck, he can't pass, and he can't shoot. So there's 3 things that are pretty. I think if you're making $5 million, you'd be able to do one of those 3 things anyways, besides getting in front of the net and causing havoc and getting in on the forecheck, which are valuable things, man, wholeheartedly. Like, I think we had a little back and forth about Lafferty in the last chat. I don't think Lafferty's as good as Bertuzzi by any stretch of the imagination, but I think $5 million is a bit rich for what Bertuzzi does, unless the playoffs roll around and Bertuzzi shows that his hockey is going to translate into wins, right, and translate into keeping the puck in the opposing team's end, getting chances on net, getting those greasy goals when you need them, like he did in the Boston Florida series. Even though they lost, he had, I think, 10 points in that series, if I can remember. Getting those greasy goals, and those are valuable, most certainly. So for me, the jury's out. I'm waiting for the playoffs. If the playoffs roll around and they get bounced and he's not doing too much, $5 million is rich for him. And we're talking about holding on, whether we're going to lose guys like Benoit for $500,000 and we're paying this guy $5 million. I'm sure we can get some guy to muck it up in front of the net, get in on the forecheck for around $3 million. You know what I'm saying? So for me, the jury's out on him.
Yeah. Okay. Like, I agree with you to an extent there. I would say, like, to do exactly what he's doing right now, yes, you could probably find a guy for 3.5. To do what I think Bertuzzi's actual potential is, I don't think that you can get a guy for that. And I think the 5 is actually probably fair. I think the problem with him is similar to the conversation that we have with Marner, where it's like, okay, is Marner actually as bad of a player, or like, should he be as hated as he is within a lot of the fan base, or disliked, I guess maybe a better word, as he is within a lot of the fan base? Probably not, but relative to what his contract is, he's always going to stir up that drama. Now, based on where... And that, by the way, is not him at peak. That is him when he dips. And I think that's kind of the conversation with Bertuzzi here right now, too, where you're looking at Bertuzzi and saying you're not getting the point production. Now you're looking at that $5 million and saying, okay, now there's this difference between what you should be and where, like, what your money is being paid, because you're just not hitting that. Part of the problem for me here, Gourd, is like, I would disagree with you that he can't, like, score, or he can't shoot the puck, or like whatever, like that kind of stuff. I think he can. I think he's really snake bitten right now. I think that there's some stuff going on that's kind of holding that back. Even look at the last couple of games. He's got the 1 goal called off because it hits his foot, kind of directed into the net, but I'll just say hits his foot, called off there. He's got the one against the Jets that's called off. That one is completely bogus. I reacted to that live while it happened. That's one of the worst no goal calls I've ever seen, where Dylan hits Nylander into the net twice and then Bertuzzi scores, and yet somehow the Leafs are penalized for being hit in. So some of that is just bad luck, I think. Some of it is snake bitten, like you're seeing these chances hit the post, or the goalie makes a credible save on him, or whatever. And I think some of that will come. Now, part of the problem here as well that I think is utilization. Look how quickly the leash is pulled on him and Domi. And who are guys that people in this fan base right now are looking at and saying, oh, these guys can't score. Like, what are they doing? Well, they go out there and they play 10 seconds on the power play, which, yeah, you probably want Tavares and Matthews and Nylander and Marner and whatever to get the majority of the power play time anyways. But then if those guys are going to be out there for so much of the power play, you're obviously cutting away from an opportunity where those guys actually excel elsewhere anyways, because on previous teams that they've played on, they've been power play players and they've been productive guys on the odd man units. Like, look at Bertuzzi in Boston, joins the number one power play, and all of a sudden he's an absolute machine. But here in Toronto, he plays 5 seconds of power play time a night. Like, you're going to get drop-offs in production when that stuff happens. You're going to have some of those things taken away. I think some of the lack of balance, I think some of the lack of trust from the coach for whatever reason hurts some of this stuff. But with all of what I just said, Gourd, the thing I cannot disagree with you on is he still has to find a way to produce more than he is right now. I don't think with his current usage and the way Sheldon Keefe deploys him, he's going to be what I thought Tyler Bertuzzi could have been coming into the season, and probably what his actual real peak performance is. But he should not be performing at the bottom level that he is right now. So, like, I can't disagree with that. I just more look at the player and say, like, I think people are making a mistake jumping on this, saying get out of town, because this is the guy that every year in the playoffs we're saying we need to find that guy. We need to find that player and add him to this lineup. I don't know.
I wonder
because
if bumping him up to the first line, and if that would not a matter of it's not a matter of putting him up on the first line to get him going, as it is some matches are just better. You know, some guys click in certain ways than other guys don't, or whatever. I'm not sure if that would be the case or not. I'm not sure if that would be the case or not, but I'm on the drop Nyes down to the third line bandwagon right now.
Yeah.
And I agree. Everything you said about Nyes is true. Like, he gets in hard on the forecheck. He's fast. He's strong. He drives the net. He does all the things you want in a power forward. He's just lacking that fit again tonight. Lacking the finish. He just lacks the finish. And I understand that, not everybody, all three guys on the line have to be finishers. There's guys that are plumbers, right? Like Zack type guys. So you got to have plumbers out there too, right? But I'm not sure Nyes is a plumber, even though he is he does. I think Nyes I think if he was on the third line, he would defer less and be probably more aggressive, shoot more. He seems to have a good shot, but he doesn't seem to be able to get it on target. I mean, in the net, into the mesh rather than in the crest. It's in the crest every single time he takes a shot. At least get it into the pads where your line mates are going to get a rebound or a tip opportunity or whatever. In the breadbasket, time after time after time. So I'm thinking maybe if you get the guy down in the third line, but we had this argument before where Keefe doesn't trust the third line, so he's not going to be able to he's going to have to. Like, that's the elephant in the room. He's got to play that third line a little bit more, but maybe if he had Nyes on it, he would play it a little bit more. Bump Bertuzzi up onto the first line, maybe, I don't know.
I don't mind. Like, I don't mind that. Yeah.
I really don't know. There still needs to be some tinkering done with the lineup, definitely, and there still needs to be a trade. There still needs to be a trade. I don't know if the trade is for a third line center. I don't know. I'd like to see Domi on the first line as a left winger, just let that go for about 3 or 4 games, see what happens there. But then what do you do with the third line center for, then what do you do for the third line center? It's, that's where maybe a move has got to be made. But I don't know. I still think the move's got to be, you can't cough up any prospects or anything like that for what the team is right now, because they're not winning the cup. I laugh when I watched Brian Burke on Leafs Nation podcast today, and he's saying, last I checked, the NHL is still giving out just one cup, right? And so all the teams are going to be all in. There's only going to be one of that's going to win the cup. So that's a big gamble if you're going to start giving up your farm and your picks and your prospects when you know one team, and then you look at your team, and as being objective as a Leaf fan, I don't know, man. I'm not putting my money on the Leafs to win the cup.
No, neither am I. And like the thing I would agree with there, Gourd, too, is like, okay, that's fine. Look for a third line center or whatever. But the way I would be approaching this is genuinely like, I mean, look, I said it numerous times. I said exactly. I said it numerous times. I'll continue to say it. It's adding. It's adding these small pieces to the lineup and making tinkering and not going crazy and adding what you did last year with O'Reilly and Achari and Shen and McCabe and Lafferty and going and adding all these pieces, because I, again, agree with you. And the other thing is, like, I'm looking at the team this year and I'm looking at the team versus maybe last season, and not necessarily like how they are on paper, because I don't think that they're actually worse on paper, but I'm looking at the way that they're playing. Like, truthfully, I would take this year's team and put them up against last year's team. I think this team, not post-deadline, mind you, I'm talking about pre-deadline in both situations, because that's what we have to compare when you're going to discuss if you're going to put these guys and make a decision on what you're going to do at the deadline. I will put this team on paper, head-to-head with last team on paper. I think this team wins in a 7-game series. I think this team beats last year's team. I just think that they do, especially when it comes to playoff hockey and how you're supposed to play in the playoffs. Like adding Benoit and McCabe into this lineup full time, injecting Nyes as an NHL player here into this, getting Bertuzzi, getting Domi into these things. Like, I think that these guys will be helpful pieces that actually can help you, especially if you're going to go head to head with last year's. Pre-deadline, mind you, remember everyone in the chat, before you jump on me, pre-deadline, I'm talking about. I'm not talking about after the deadline. I'm talking about pre. But the problem is that the way that this team's playing is not where you were at with the team, the way the team was playing last year. So last year you get all excited because you say, we've got this goaltender and Samsonov who's incredibly hot. You've got Joseph Wall backing up, who's coming through the minors, who could be able to jump in here. You've got Matt Murray, who the hell knows, on any given night he could be the best goaltender in the world, and on any given night he could be sitting back in the press box because he's injured. Hopefully he's okay for his own physical health's sake, but nonetheless, that was what happened last year. And so you go out and you add all these big pieces, and you sell, or sell the farm, effectively, is more what I was trying to say. You sell the farm to go out and bring these pieces in. You win one round, that's great. But then you go into the second round and you win one game, and your true colors kind of show again. And it was like, okay, this is the team we've always known that they were. So now you're looking at this team who is probably a little bit better on paper compared to last year, is playing worse than the team was last year. So why would your expectation be that it's going to be any different? The way I'm approaching this deadline is, okay, you want an extra center to go into your bottom six? Like, maybe you're right, Gourd. Maybe it's Bertuzzi goes up to the first line, Domi goes to the second line, or Domi goes to first line, Bertuzzi, whatever. However you want to shake it up, Nyes goes down, and then you need a new third line center. So maybe you just go and get a third line center. And you shift a couple guys around, and Reeves becomes your 13th forward. And now all of a sudden, as things have bumped around, Kampf is back in the lineup, Yarncroke's back in the lineup, and the way that this team is marginally improved because you've just kind of added a little bit of depth. And then maybe you just go out and, God, I don't know, maybe you go just find a way to dish off TJ Brody, because I think you and I are on the same page there with him. But maybe you just add another depth defenseman and you call it a day, because you've now improved on Giordano, and the fact that, truthfully, I think he's
done.
Like he's done. I don't know, man. I love the guy. I love what he did for the first little bit that he was here in Toronto. Right now, it's hard to watch on a daily basis and be like, yeah, this guy's going to make an impact in the playoffs. He just looks done. He looks a step behind. So when I'm looking at those, I'm like, I'm adding small marginal pieces. And then if these guys go on a run, they go on a run. You let them go on a run. That's great for them. But you don't go crazy on this. The thing that is driving me nuts, where people are like, why wouldn't you go all in on this team? You've got Austin Matthews. It's like the Florida Panthers. Do you know how many moves they made at the deadline last year, Gourd? They made 0. They did not make one single trade. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
And they got Austin Matthews next year and the year after, and they got Nylander for the next 8 years, and they're probably gonna re-up Marner for a fortune, right? So I mean, they're probably gonna do it, right? So they got those guys.
Yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at.
They paid them. They locked them in. So it's always going to be about trying to find, guys on EL, good young guys. So you can't give up those young guys. You can't give up the Mintons and the Cowans and the stuff. You need those guys
because your contracts are going to be so expensive.
Exactly. And then you're going to have to look at guys on PTOs that are guys like Gregor that can pick up, that are serviceable and stuff like those. That's basically the blueprint that you've made, that Dubas started, and that's you pretty much. Tree laming has to be married to it because all those guys got no move clauses, et cetera, et cetera. So he's locked into having to do the same thing. So you can't really. You have to really be able to identify your team, like even doing that every year. Is this the mix that could go all the way? Is this the right mix? And then when you're seeing that 500 hockey, like they're a 500 hockey team. Like to me, those ties, overtime ties, that's a loss. They're a 500 hockey team. You don't go all in with a 500 hockey team. You tinker and you hope your horses can take you. You hope you get some hot goaltending, and you hope you can defend. They still like I said, Gio's a step behind. He gets tired. He makes tired mistakes. He like that today. He let that guy get in behind him just after Liljegren gets lambasted in the media by Keefe. Gio lets the guy in behind him for that penalty shot, right? And you're the veteran, Gio. Come on a play like that, offensive zone face-off like that, you're going to let the guy get in behind you like that? That's unforgivable, man. So,
well, Gordon, I think the one thing that you said there that's kind of key with this is like when you look at the Leafs team, the word that you said that kind of stuck out to me there was you hope. You hope you get hot goaltending. Okay. You hope that your players show up and play playoff style hockey. You hope that your defense holds up in that period of time. Like when I look at some of these other teams, like if you're in Colorado, if you're in Vegas, you're not hoping you get great or good goaltending. You're hoping that your goaltending doesn't fall off a cliff, because that could happen to anybody. Like that's what happened in Boston last year. Mind you, I think both those guys struggled a little bit because with the injuries, but nonetheless, you're just hoping that like the worst doesn't happen. You're not having to sit there and hope for the best, because you're looking at your goaltenders saying, that guy's a good goaltender. I trust that guy nightly. Those guys are great goaltenders that can get hot. Samsonov, you're kind of like, this guy could turn into a pumpkin at any given moment. And now, mind you, he's played pretty well over the last little bit, but it's still a concern because you also started this year having to send him to the fucking Marlies, for those people who have forgotten about that. Then on top of that, if you're looking at your forwards and saying you hope Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and these guys show up in the playoffs, like you're kind of behind the 8 ball here anyways, and probably not in a position to just be jumping in and going all out anyways. So I'm in agreement there, Gourd. I think that's a good point. I don't know. That's just kind of like the general thoughts on the way to approach this deadline. But I think you're right.
And the way I see it is, you put your money in those 4 guys. So your top 2 lines have got to produce. So what does that mean? Your bottom 2 lines have got to not get dominated or scored against. You can't have the other team going in and having a cycle fest in your own zone on your bottom 2 lines. You have to get those guys to transport the puck out of the zone, get the puck in deep, have a heavy forecheck. That's why I wanted them to keep a guy like Lafferty. I don't care if the guy scores. I want guys to get with speed and with some heft. Get some guys who drive, get the puck in deep, pound those deep, pound, get off, next line, pound, 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 pound. Let the big boys out. You don't have to score. What you have to do is not get scored against, not get hemmed in. And you need guys that can get the puck out. You need guys that can sustain a forecheck. Too much light. The forecheck is far too light sometimes. It really frustrates the heck out of me. There's a play the day where this isn't a forecheck play, but it just has to do with heavy hockey. And it's Domi of all guys. Like Domi had a rush. He had ample opportunity to cut to the net and get a play on net. And rather than do that, he swooped around and tried to do the wraparound play. And then the puck zooped out the other end of the crease and went down the other way for a play on our net. And I thought, why don't you just lower your shoulder and drive into the center of the ice and try and chip a puck up or get a shot on net? No, it's just a light play again. Light, far too light. So that really frustrates me. I want to see more heavy hockey. And I want those lower six guys to be fast and heavy.
Yeah.
Both of those things would satisfy me in terms of shoring up those bottom six lines. You know, guys like Robertson, give him a shot on the top line. He's a shooter. He can pass. He can stick handle. It's not like Matthews and Marner aren't defensively responsible players. They're two of the best defensive hockey players in the game. So you can have a guy like Robertson, who's not a defensive hockey player, play with him. He can shoot. He can handle the puck. He can pass. He's maybe not going to go in and loosen pucks and whatever, but he's much better. He's going to be much better on the rush. He's going to be much better at getting a shot on net than Nyes is. Try him up there, because he's not really a bottom six guy. He's not heavy enough to be a bottom six guy. So bump him up and give him a shot. Bump that guy up. Give him a shot. Give him a 3-game shot is what I say. Or move him with a pick and try and see if you can get a guy like Tanev, you know. Move him with not a top pick. I don't know. Could you get that? Could you get Tanev for Robertson and a third? Leafs got a third, don't they?
Yeah, but then Gourd, are we getting into the territory now where we're trading prospects or we're trading young players for rentals? Like Tanev's a UFA at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, I know. I understand.
So this is where the conversation just becomes a slippery slope, where I'm looking at this going, I don't think that this is where you make these decisions or move these players or make these trades. I don't know. I don't know. I understand what you're kind of saying of like, hey, give him the shot. The other thing that I kind of look at here, by the way, just to kind of like tie it back to changing the first line or moving Nyes into the first line or whatever, Chris Kunitz, when he was playing in Pittsburgh, which majority, if not all of it, was with Sidney Crosby, this guy was not a big point producer when he was playing there, but he was the right type of player to play on that line. Maybe you just need the right type of player to play on the line. It doesn't have to be a guy who's going to put up points because the other guys on that line are going to be the ones to do so. But we do have a couple things here. I want to get into a couple super chats that I see in the chat here, so I don't want to let those go by or miss those. We do have over 100 people watching right now. I appreciate that. For everyone who's watching right now who hasn't already, make sure, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. We'll keep bumping this thing up. Let's get to 2,500 subscribers by the playoff time. That's the number I want to see, 2,500 by playoffs. Hit that like button. We're 4 away from 50 here. There's no reason we can't get to 100. There's over 100 people watching. So please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. But first and foremost, let's get to a super chat here. So Gourd, Bates 88. First of all, thank you, Bates, for the super chat. Gourd says, oh my God, Gourd's hitting temperature guns on
sorry.
38.5. Bates, sorry. Thank you for the super chat. All good. I just in the corner of my eye. Anyways, sorry. Bates says,
sorry.
It's all good. Bates says, I don't want to get too far ahead or to be careful. I don't want to get too far ahead or to be careful what we wish for, but do you think they're better off dropping to first wildcard spot in April? Less pressure. Gourd, I'll answer this first. I don't think this takes like too long of an explanation, but you let me know if you disagree or agree with my take. From a fan perspective, strictly, like let's look at this from two lenses. First of all, from a fan perspective, I don't think it's a bad idea if you're in a wild card spot and you're punching up and playing one of those teams, because maybe it's the first time where everyone looks at you and says, these fucking jokers, like these guys are in the wild card spot. Like, what a pathetic team. I can't believe they're in this position. Like, they need to be better. And then it's just like, all right, you go out there as a wild card team, you face a number one team. So like maybe from a fan perspective, it takes like a little bit of pressure off, or it's just a different way to approach it instead of being top dog every single year. But mind you, at the same time, you're also probably going to be playing like Boston or Florida if that happens and you're into that seat. So like, it's not like this is just like an easy path. Now, the other thing here too, where I say there's two sides of this. If you're on the team, like, God no, is being in the first wildcard spot an ideal position. Like, if you're in that room, if you're a coaching staff member, if you're the GM, you're in the organization, your management, whatever it is, I don't care who the fuck you are. I don't care if you're the person who is in charge of putting labels in the stalls when you get there. If your mindset is like, oh, we're happy with the first wildcard spot, fired. Like, wrong mentality about going about this, because that's just not the way you should be operating in that room. I hope no one in that room is operating that way. They should be trying to win the President's Trophy at this point if they can. Like, I don't care. Win every single game for the remainder of the season. Those are the two ways that I look at it, the two perspectives. But ultimately, I think the answer is no. You win as much as you can and you try to get up there. Gourd, I don't know. I'll give it to you. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. You try and win. And I don't, as a fan, I don't want to be, going down the stretch and are they in there? Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to be a while? I want to be in nice and comfortably, I want to be nice and comfortably in a good spot when the playoffs roll around. And I mean, in a good spot in the standings and in a good spot in terms of their play on the ice. I want them playing hard, good playoff hockey, not just getting by and scratching in. And when it comes to the playoffs, I don't care who the first round opponent is. It could be the Bruins, it could be Florida, whatever. You're going to meet those teams anyway. You got to beat the better teams to win the cup anyway. I'd rather, as a fan, play the Bruins or Florida. I want revenge on the Bruins. I want revenge. I don't want a weak opponent. I want the Bruins. Personally, as a Bruin hater, I want the Bruins, right? Or from last year, Florida, I want them to win, and I want someone to ragdoll Sam Bennett in the process. That's what I want as a fan. Yeah. And I hope that's what the Leafs want as players. I noticed something in the game today. Once that McCabe incident happened, I thought the Leafs stepped it up. I thought they played gritty in the third period, and they almost they had an FU attitude, even after the penalty shot goal. They didn't fold at all. In the old Leafs, that's the time when they would sag, right, and sulk, and there goes another one. But they were just too pissed off to let that happen. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that hockey.
Yeah.
All of that third period was great, except for the 6-on-5. Oh, my God. When the other team pulls the goalie, why do our 5 skaters on the ice all go back into ball hockey mode? They all retreat back, and they all are like ball hockey goalies. Let's all play ball hockey goalie and give these guys a run around and let them have their cycle and take their shot. Finally, they were like, wow, almost like the Leafs power play today, where the Dallas's PK just sagged, and they had all kinds of room. Look at the room Tavares had to get that shot off, and then Nylander had to get that shot off. The same thing with that fourth goal for Dallas. They just sagged, and then finally the guy who took the shot, he's like, Johnson, was it? He's like,
Wyatt Johnson.
God. Yeah, he's just like, wow, wait a minute. He just got, okay, I think I'll just pull it in here and take a nice little wrist shot. Thank you. Thanks for thanks for no pressure whatsoever. Like we said before on the last podcast was their 6-on-5 is less pressure than the PK. Why can't the guy pressure the puck like they do on the PK? Oh my goodness, that drives me up the wall. The other team, when it's a 6-on-5 against, the other team gets so many opportunities to get a shot on net. It's ridiculous. I just don't hear it.
And Gourd, like I'm pulling it up on the screen here. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna be able to see through the Zoom, but you should be able to see if you've got the YouTube there going on the side. But like the thing that confuses me about like what they do here as well, what this Leafs team did, where it's like, okay, in general, I understand the practice because they've got guys like this, and then you had your defense kind of like here. But there was a point in time where it's like, okay, you had your defense a little bit further out, you had your forwards a little bit further out. But to your point, the thing that they did that was confusing to me, where like, I understand in practice what's going on here, or in theory what's going on, where you're like, okay, play on the perimeter. But effectively, the way that they're playing like this should allow you enough space or enough defensive coverage to kind of keep guys towards the outside. But then it's like, okay, puck's up top, and then it goes down to this guy down here. All of a sudden, you see this forward start to go like this, and he slags it. He drags in. And then this puck that's now down here comes back, and it goes back to the guy up top. Okay, and then now this is what you see from this guy. Okay, he starts to slide in because the guy that had the puck in the corner starts to creep in. And then these guys are starting to slowly come in like this. And like, this is basically how they were lined up when they got scored on. Like, it was all five guys right down the middle alleyway of the rink. And like, I understand if you've got a couple guys like that, but at the same time, the guy who was up top was player on Dallas out here, and you've got your closest defenders like standing here like this. Like, he's got all the time in the world up top here to be able to take a shot, be able to move across with the puck, and then sneak in through here, where he's all of a sudden getting this shot from like here to that spot because he's now in there. He's got a couple of his own guys in the middle creating screens. Like, at that point in time, you've now created this entire just middle channel of the ice that's so clogged that, yeah, okay, maybe it's hard to get pucks through, but it's also like, can your goalie see shit? Like, at that point, it just becomes tough.
Anything could happen. Puck could go off a skate, and then all that shooter has to do is get it by the first guy, and then it's anybody's puck in front of the net. Then it could be hack and slap and chip, and there it goes.
Yeah.
So how can that first guy, that in that case, the guy between the goalie and the shooter was Brody, and he was 5 feet away from the shooter, and I could see the shooter was going to take a hard, and you could see his body position, or he's going to rip it, and then he just kind of realized, oh wow, I can just kind of look and see where the seam is. There it is. Shoot, there it is, in the net. There's just way too much space on that periphery. I
just couldn't get. It's like, okay, like I'm fine with like the positioning, but as you're saying, Gourd, it was the collapse, right? Like, it was like, okay,
yes.
Puck goes from top down low, and then the top forward who's up there, I think in a normal penalty killing position, the way that they're going is like they're rotating in and around, where you're kind of moving the diamond to adjust to something where it's not a diamond and it's not a box. It's an active piece that right. That's the best way to put it. Yeah, honestly, it is. Yeah. And it's like the guy jumps out, and then, okay, now you're pressure, and then you slag back in, and you overreact back in because then the next guy goes out, so you're in a position to kind of recover for him. You're there as a support piece to him. That 6-on-5 at the end was like puck at the top, the forward's out there guarding the guy at the top, puck went down, the forward slags back in, and it was like puck went back to the top, the defense slag back in, puck went across, forward slag back in, and I'm like, oh my god, like everyone's just going to be in the middle of the ice here now, like everyone's holding hands.
You could just see it coming. Thank God they got that fifth goal, is all I can say. And what a nice play by Tavares on that one, by the way. Yeah. Tavares it's definitely stepped it up. Last couple of games, after everyone was writing him off before the All-Star break, and I was saying, look, this happens every year. Just that's the way he skates and Tavares played a heck of a game tonight, all the way around. Although the guy had kind of airport with room to get that shot off, but good shot.
Yeah.
And but a heck of a play on the game tying goal, and a good game by Nylander all the way around tonight. I'm not just talking about the goals, but Nylander was skating tonight, so.
I thought he was. I thought, hey, maybe I'm wrong. I thought he was on Monday too. I didn't think he played poorly. People were pissed off that he didn't get points. I thought he was moving on Monday. I did. I thought he was.
Played well on Monday, except for those blips.
Where they turn their brains off.
Yeah, they just have those blips, and it happens far too often, and at the worst parts of the game. But aside from that, Keefe pretty much nailed it. They played a good game overall, and I thought Samsonov played good, but again, he played just poorly enough to lose it too. He made some great saves, though. There was a couple of good plays that he made on misdirection shots. There was one that went off a guy's leg, and he was away from the post, but he had to really stretch and keep his left leg down. He's kind of good at that. I really like what he does there. But yeah, Sammy's a keep your fingers crossed kind of goalie, right?
Yeah, and tonight I felt like Samsonov. Look, again, I've said this many times before. I'm going to keep saying it because I'm just not. And until I have goalie guys on here or guys who better evaluate goalies, I can't really say too much. I can only say what I'm seeing. Tonight it looked like it felt like he was tracking the puck well, but he was fighting it when it got there, if that makes sense. He was able to get across to the puck, but when it came to him, he wasn't comfortable with it. It felt like there was more rebounds than probably a normal night where a guy is actually pretty dialed in. I just felt like you're looking and it was like he's following the play, he's getting there pretty well, but when the puck comes, he looks a little jittery. But otherwise, I think you're right, Gourd. A little bit of a cross your fingers guy. We have a couple housekeeping things that we got to do in the chat here, and I want to get to those. We hit 50 likes here on the stream. I appreciate everyone who's liked the stream here tonight. I appreciate everyone who's subscribed to the channel. We also hit 1,300 subscribers here while we are live, so thank you to all of you for that. I do appreciate it. But we've got the smelling salts. The smelling salts have to come out. So 50 likes. Thank you very much. Continue to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. But 50 likes, we hit the salts. I'm starting. These are starting to fade. So if we've got a smelling salt company or anybody in the chat who works for one, send them my way. I need some of those. But there you go. There's the smelling salts. We have 2 super chats here as well. We'll quickly address these. First of all, CD Corn. Thank you, CD, for the super chat. CD says, I love my buds like I love my broth on a heater. CD, for those who aren't aware, Gourd, I'm not sure if you've been familiar with it. CD lets me know every few games what the temperature of the soup is. There was a couple games ago where he couldn't even get the can open. It was so cold. But now it looks like the buds and his broth are on a heater. So glad to hear that and appreciate it. It's as Gourd is on a heater right now too. Yeah, I appreciate that, CD. Thank you for the super chat. And we've got another one here. Michael with the super chat. Michael, always appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. This one isn't as specified, so I'll do my best to try to answer based on what I think you're talking about here. He says, if trade and signed, go ahead. Otherwise, no deal. I think he's talking about Tanev. I would assume the conversation there is about Tanev. I don't know. That's kind of where I was at, Gourd, as well. I mean, we don't really have to get into that. I'm sure as we get closer and closer to this trade deadline, we're going to dig into much more of this stuff anyways. So it's not really something I'm looking to get into tonight as well. But you and I talked about, Gourd, the fact that are you willing to trade pieces? Are you willing to trade these prospects or young players or whatever it is that you're going to look at? Robertson, Minton, Cowan, Niemela, like Hildeby, any of these guys, are you willing to trade them for something? The honest answer to me is you can't be getting like one extra year or a year and a half or to the end of the season out of the guy. If you're going to get a guy who's a UFA at the end of the year, he's got to be willing to sign. Otherwise, the answer is no. If you got a guy who's a year and a half, The answer is probably still no, because to basically put the pressure on yourself of like, we're going to trade Nick Robertson for a guy who's going to be here next season with all the money that we're having piled up. Are you going to be able to make, like, you do have to keep in mind, can we make moves in the offseason here where you could sign guys, add guys to this team? Are we going to be able to get better? Even if we go out and get, I can't even think of a player right now who's got like a year after this one, but like say you go and get that guy and he's got $4.5 million. You add him into this team for next season as well. Are you going to be able to add because now you've added this guy? Those are things you got to keep in mind. So that's kind of what I think there. But we also have another super chat here, and Gourd, I think that you might be able to answer this as well, but super chat. Super chat here from Michael. Michael says, Zach, I think the number one priority is should they re-sign Mitch in the summer? I say no. How about you and guys in the chat? Second, should they keep coach? I say no. Okay. Let's start with number one. Michael, also thank you for the super chat. Let's start with number one. Priority is should they re-sign Mitch in the summer? I say no. How about you guys? I don't know, Gourd. I don't know if you're going to have a different answer than me. The answer is yes, because he's got a no-move clause. I don't think he's going to want to leave. I don't know where you're going to trade him. I don't know what you're going to be able to get back for him at this point. I think you got to just sign him. You're probably expecting JT to take some type of pay cut. I don't know how much it's going to be, but Mitch, you're probably got to re-sign him. I think if there was a time to trade him and move on from it, it would have been last year. Before the no move clause kicked in, because otherwise you're going to be a little bit handcuffed in what you can do, and you can't let him walk. I don't know. Any different opinion there, Gourd?
Well, I think what we think about it is irrelevant. I think the Leafs are going to so I think so. I know for me, I'm not a Marner hater. I'm a Marner fan, right? I'm big on Marner. So I don't know if he's going to be signing for what. I don't know. I don't even want to think.
I'm not a hater either. Let's also be clear about that. I will be honest. I'm not a hater either. The thing I dislike is his current contract.
Yeah, I know, and his next one's going to be worse. So
exactly,
his next one's going to be worse. But there are a lot of Marner haters in the chat, and there are a lot of Marner haters online. So I'm just addressing that. I'm not saying it's you. I know that you get frustrated. It's one thing being frustrated with players, right? And it's another thing being a hater. Those are two different things, right?
Yeah. So, and I get frustrated. And again, I know you're not saying this, but for those in the chat, again, I get frustrated because of the contract. When you see the level of play and output, or like these moments of, I don't know, like falling asleep, I guess, for lack of better words, then I'm looking at the contract going, holy fuck, you held this team over the fire to get that money. And then that's when it drives me nuts. But anyway, sorry, Gourd, I didn't mean, I'll stop cutting you off.
So yeah, I don't know if the only way I see like trading Marner is either you're going to say, look, we're just going to like retool on the fly here. We can see if we get a boatload of, high-end picks and prospects, which bode well for the future, I think. Or you do an old-fashioned hockey trade, but I don't know what the old-fashioned hockey trade looks like. Does the old-fashioned hockey trade look like getting a number one D? Who is that number one D? I don't know. It depends on the deal, I guess. I mean, anything. Yeah. I would put anything's open to be on the table as far as I'm concerned, and I'd be willing to trade Marner for the right pieces, right, for an old-fashioned hockey deal. If I get a solid number two and a good winger, to replace him, because you have to replace him on the wing as well, right? It's going to start getting pretty sparse on the wing if Marner's gone, right? Now you're going to look, so you have to replace that, and you have to get your fair value for the guy. So I don't know who's trading whom in order to get Marner, right? So you have to, if you're going to give me a proposition to trade Marner, you're going to have to tell me like who are you trading for, and then I can make my decision. But in terms of are the Leafs, do you think the Leafs should trade Marner because he's going to cost too much money? So therefore, we should trade him because by re-signing him, the Leafs are going to be all in that whole cap issue boat all over again. Regardless of the cap going up, their salaries are going to go up, and then bang, we're in the same boat as we've been for the last X amount of years, right?
Yeah.
But as we were talking before, I think that's their plan, is to put their money in one basket in terms of the core, and then try to build around that with good young ELC young guys coming up. But if you're going to have young guys coming up, you better hang on to those picks. You know what I'm saying? You better hang on to the picks, and you better be pretty astute in signing guys like Benoit and Gregor and stuff like that, and lay off of the who's that guy out with the injury that they signed from Dallas or Minnesota?
Klingberg.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
Klingberg. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Dallas,
I got COVID brain right now.
Well, he did play for Dallas. He went Dallas, Anaheim, Minnesota. So you weren't wrong.
Yeah, so they have to be astute in terms of that. They can't be making those types of mistakes, right? They can't. So I think it has to be. I think they're going to look. Like I said, they're going to re-sign Martyr, so everybody better get used to that. It's going to be for way more than he should get. So I better get used to that too. And they're going to be in the same cap hell as before. So everybody get used to that too. So that's all I can say on that trade Marner front.
There was a second question here. I don't even know how I'm going to answer this. Second, should they keep the coach? I say no. Gourd, you take this.
Yeah, I don't know. I want more. I want a Patrick Waugh type coach, man. I really do. I'm an old school guy. I'm an old school guy, and I want more. I want more grit and guts behind the bench. I want more fire and passion behind the bench. I want a Laviolette type of guy. I that's what I want. But I'm 62 years old, so take that for what it's worth, man. And I'm still I'm still in the old school dinosaur hockey, man.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what wins in the playoffs. I think that's what wins in the playoffs. I think playoff is old school hockey, and I think that's what they need, man. And they need guys more, guys to hold guys accountable. I like Keefe coming out though, and getting on Liljegren about that stupid play the other day. Not just Liljegren, but Matthews at the end of his shift and coughing up the puck at the blue line there to start the whole playoff. Good. Call the guys out when they need it. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Keefe seems to be I don't mind the system per se. I don't mind their system per se, but I don't like how the team sags at times emotionally, and how far too many of those sags in games cost them games. And I think we can't say that they're too talented to be a 500 team. They're talented, but they are a 500 team. And I don't know if that's Keefe or is that the personnel.
Yep. Yeah. No, I don't know.
So it might be, a different voice in the room often happens. What's Craig Berube doing? There's a guy that probably could fire them up.
Yeah, I know. Man. I'm in the same page. In terms of what you do in the summer, God, I can't even think about that for the coach, because I thought they would have changed him last year. They didn't. They extended him. It's just, it's like, who knows? I would agree. I agree with Gourd 100%. But
the post-game and pre-game interviews. Sorry to talk over you. Go, man.
No, sorry. No, I didn't have anything else to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we get sick of those post-game interviews when they lose, right? It's just like we're all sick of losing.
Do that again, Gourd. Do that again.
You know how he does it, right? And it's just, we're all sick of it because it comes after a loss and we're all pulling our hair out with frustration. And then he's coming off and he's, trying to, talk it off. And it's like, oh man, just not now. Do we have to have the coach on every time in the post-game interview? Come on. So we get sick of that face. That's the losing face. So we're like, I don't want to see that face anymore. But you know what? There's going to be another face in there too. So, it was Babcock before. Everybody hated Babcock. Well, for good reason. Okay, but you hate the guy who comes out, has to talk to the media after your team loses. That's it. How do you explain a loss? You just do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to say exactly unless I see behind the scenes and exactly what he's doing in terms of coaching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're just fans and we can only go by the results. But I guess there are some in-game things and stuff that I'd like to see improved. I don't know. Yeah, I'd like to see a more fiery, old school guy, like a Berube type of guy. I prefer behind the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I like Patrick Waugh. I like the other day where they were struggling. He called his team over and he's like, he didn't really ball them out, but he was pumping them up, and then they went out and scored right on the very next shift. It was like, yeah, I mean, that's it, eh? He recognized.
Well, remember Paul Maurice last year when Florida was in here? It was during the regular season. It was a late regular season game. Florida was losing. Paul Maurice calls them all over, tears an absolute strip off them. I'm pretty sure they came back, won that game, started a heater, went and made the playoffs, and then went to the Stanley Cup final. And it's like, it just feels like it's not that Keefe can't do it. It's not that he doesn't do it. Like, you see him on the bench lose his mind every now and then, but like, that's a new thing. We didn't really see that before. We didn't really see Keefe on the bench doing that before. You haven't really seen accountability until now, whether it's publicly or it's guys getting sad or missing shifts or losing time on the power play. Like, you just haven't really seen that until now. And I think to the point of just like, if this had been who he was the entire time, maybe things would have been different 4 years ago when he first got here, kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, you can be a player's coach and also hold guys accountable. Like, the players don't have to just like purely hate you. You can be nice to the guys and stuff, but you can also be like, hey, you're dinking around making bad plays in your own zone. You're going to sit a shift. Like, you can do that because then guys are like, oh, fuck, like, I let this guy down. You know what I mean? Like, it can kind of instill some of that. Now it kind of feels like maybe it's like he's doing what everyone has always wanted him to do, and I think he's doing the right thing, but maybe it's just too little too late where they're like what is this guy like doing? Like, he's never done this before. Like, he's a fraud or what? You know what I mean? Like, it could be I talked about this the other day. Could be the mentality. I don't know. We don't know for sure. Like you said, Gourd, we're not in that room, so we don't really know. But it just feels like they could benefit from a new voice. My concern is that if this happens now, if they do this during the season, I don't think that new voice is going to be the guy that you want long term. I think if they do this now, the guy that they bring in, ow, I just hit my elbow off my table. I think that the guy that they bring in is going to be just like an interim guy. Guy Boucher steps in and takes over, which could be fine, but I just don't think that that's the long-term solution. That's my thoughts on the coaching.
Yeah, and I don't know if I were a hockey player, an NHL player, and Keefe was yelling at me, I would, whatever, guy. Where if Craig Berube were in my face, I'd probably be shitting my pants, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be like, okay, Chief. Next show, I'll do my best, guy. Keefe is like, yeah, easy there, fourth line scrub on the, where you're 7-year, barely made it career guy. All right, Gourd. Not that Berube was a top line guy, but Berube was a guy who played hard every shift.
Demanded some respect. Yeah. Demanded respect. Yeah. All right. Let's get you out of here on this. We'll get you to do play of the game. All right, Gourd. Play of the game. You know how it works. What do you got for us? What's your play of the game?
Yeah, play of the game is the Marner goal for a couple of reasons. They just gave up that penalty shot. They looked like the old Leafs just going to sag right there, but they went out and that whole shift was full on determination. Everybody out on the ice in that shift. They got it in. Had a play on net, went back to Matthews. tough pass for Marner to handle, kicks it up in his skates, comes in, nice chip up into the top shelf. Beautiful play.
I think the play of the game
yeah.
for me, because you took that one, it was a pretty sick play. It's also an immediate response. But the play of the game for me is going to be the Nylander. Honestly, you know what? I was going to say the game-winning goal, but fuck it. I'm going with the Nylander power play goal. Because the other one can get an honorable mention there for me, but it's because that guy just launching pucks from the point like that, he's proven how lethal of a goal scorer he is. Kind of comes out of the All-Star break where leading into it, people were on his case, hey, you signed that big contract, you get paid, and now your point production has kind of gone missing. I do agree with people that there was a couple games there where it looked like he was taking some nights off, where it was like, hey, I got my contract, like, thanks for having me, I'll see you in a couple games. Like, I don't disagree, but then I think he picked it back up, and then I think just because of the lull that he was in prior to, some of that point production just didn't come back, even though he was playing well. And then people were just like this box score watching, where it was like, maybe you're not watching him play on a shift, but you wake up in the morning and you see that he didn't have points, and you're like, what a fucking bum, like, this Swedish guy stealing all of our money, signing his contract, surprise, like, this is what I'm reading every day. I'm like, oh my god, what are we doing? Like, this guy signs his contract and we want him gone. I read like 3 games later, but I think he was playing well the couple games leading in. He just didn't get the points. The Islanders game on Monday, I think he played well again. People were pushing back against me, and I think, I don't know, maybe I was seeing things differently. Maybe it's just off of the All-Star break, but like, I thought he played well. He just didn't get the points. And then to see that goal tonight, the power play succeeds there, which feels good because, let's be honest, they kind of stunk like shit leading into the break. So you get the goal there. Power play scores, but then it's not just that, it's, hey, let's shoot the puck from the point. Hey, Mitch Marner, stand in front and be a screen. Hey, use screens and move the puck quickly side to side. Like, puck goes to Riley, puck quickly comes back to Nylander. Now the goaltender's having to move side to side. The defense is moving side to side. You get not a deflection, you get a screen in front of the net. Like, you get these things that contribute, and now all of a sudden you're looking and going like, maybe if you do this on the power play, this can contribute to success in the future as well. So I was happy with that, but it was also just, by the way, a sick shot. He fired it 5-hole on the defenseman in front of him, and also still managed to go tit on the goaltender. Like, that was a sick shot. That's my play of the game, Gourd.
Yeah, and that it's, you know, that puts your stamp on the game. That first goal, that opening goal too, right? Yeah. Like, we're not just going through the motions here, you know, waiting the game out. No, we are taking the game over. So that first goal is definitely a good goal. And you're right, on the Marner screen, like, Marner could have easily splayed off to the side there, looking for a pass, to feed the slot, right? But he saw he's got the shooter there that had some separation from the defender, and he went right in front of the goalie's eyes there. So good job on Marner there as well. But yeah, good to see him just drive that puck right through there. And that fifth goal is also a beauty, man. Just a great play.
100%.
Great play by, I thought for sure, Tavares, because he has always got blinders and rarely passes the puck. Drives the defensive back, does a nice edge move there to cut the defenseman, to cut back and make the play. Great. That was a great. Tavares looked like he was skating tonight. He didn't look like he had his construction boots on, his skates tonight.
In his boots, yeah.
So it looked good, man. Yeah, I think good call on that one, Zach.
All right, Gourd, I appreciate you calling
I'm struggling
in. You
here.
battled through here. You're struggling a little bit. I'm seeing this guy. He's hitting seeing how his temperature guns and stuff. He's blowing his nose. He's dying. I appreciate you calling in and sticking with me for as long as you did. Thank you very much, Gourd. Let's say this one more time as well. Me. Ohio, go
Zai.
Go
Mas.
Ohio, gozaimasu. Gourd.
Perfect. Nice.
There we go. I'll get it for next time. Thank you for calling in. You know, before you go, what one? What were you going to say?
So goodbye. You know that one, right? Japanese goodbye?
I'm not going to say it in case I get it wrong, and then people are like, oh, it's stereotyping. I think so, but...
Sayonara. Sayonara.
Okay, sayonara. There you go.
Everyone knows that, I'm pretty sure. I think I knew that. I think that was the only word I knew before I came to Japan. Sayonara and sushi. That was about it. Sayonara, sushi, and samurai. I think I know those 3 words.
Sayonara. Gourd, thank you for doing this. Can we get one more Keefe impression before you leave?
Well, sorry. Sorry. I don't want to say that it wasn't, Sorry.
Hey, Gourd, get out of here. Gourd, get out of here. Thank you for doing this. Sayonara. Feel better. I appreciate you doing this. There you go. The man himself, Gordon Graham, calling in all the way from Japan while he is sick as well. So thanks to Gourd for doing that here tonight. We do have a couple more things to get to before we can wrap this one up. But before we do, first and foremost, I see a super chat here from Michael. So let's get to that. Michael, thank you for the super chat. Michael says, according to scouts, Minton is projected a third-line center at best. He's only okay in the World Juniors. I mean, Michael, I don't know what scouting reports you're reading there. It's obviously like he's not a guy who's going to take Austin Matthews' position. That being said, okay, if he's your third-line center, then he's your third-line center. What if he's a really good third-line center? What if he's the best third-line center? What if he's the best third-line center that you've ever had in this organization? What if he's a guy that can make a jump and play in your second line? What if he's a guy that can take over for JT at that second center spot? Like we don't know for sure. They can make all the predictions. They can make all the scouting reports that they want. Usually they're pretty accurate. Like I'm not gonna fight with them over it, but to use it as gospel, like it's like the Farmer's Almanac, like. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, there are scouts out there who, you know what? I got to find it because there's a guy who's like a former NHL scout who tweeted that Dylan Strome was going to be better than Connor McDavid. Like, if we're at the point where we're talking about Dylan Strome, Connor McDavid, Dylan Strome is going to be better than Connor McDavid, and this guy was an NHL scout. Like, that kind of tells you all you need to know in terms of how much you're going to use this as gospel for moving forward and trying to project players. Like, take it with a grain of salt, understand what's being said, and say, like, okay, yeah, probably not going to be your first-line guy. But at the same time, like, I can't find it. I can't find it right now. Someone out there knows what I'm talking about, but we just can't use it as gospel. Maybe he won't be incredible, but to say like only third line center, who knows? Who knows? That also doesn't mean like you just can't keep the guy or anything. Thank you for the super chat though. Final thing we got to do before we get out of here, if you guys are watching in the chat, 2 things. First and foremost, hit the like button, please, and thank you. Subscribe to the channel. And second thing, let's get to our grades of the game.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Okay, also, by the way, the guy that I was talking about, his name is like Greg McHagg or something like that. He was like a former scout. McHagg. He's the one who has the tweet about like, but I can't find his Twitter account. I don't know if he like deleted it, but there's a tweet. I'm telling you. I promise you there's a tweet. I'll see if I can find it and we'll bring it to the next stream. Grant McHagg. McDavid. Strome. There we go. Come on. Where is this? Where is this tweet? I'm sorry, guys. This is like the low. This is the late part of the stream here where we get to. Yeah, looks like he's deleted it, but I see the articles and I see people screenshotting it all the time. He said, people are going to laugh at me, but I would have Strome over McKegg. Oh, McKegg said this, by the way. He would said, I would have Strome over McDavid, come back in a couple of years. Right, like, we're going to sit here and be like, well, the scouts only have Minton third-line center. This guy was, technically, as he says, a former NHL scout. All I'm saying is that they're not always right. They're not 100%. It is what it is. Grades of the game. I want to hear what you guys have to say for your grades of the game here tonight. I want to know where you're at. I want to know how you feel about this game. I want to know what the thoughts are. Because for me, this grade is going to be a... Yeah, Grant McKegg. I searched it up. I found it. I found him. Couldn't find the tweet. I don't know. This is actually kind of a tough one. I think I'm going to go with like an A-. And maybe I'm a little bit too high on this game. But like... I don't think Samsonov played terribly. I think that there was a really weird play where he went from one side of the net to the other. It was in the second period. Dallas had a chance, and he was facing the wrong way. We got lucky. Dallas hit the post there, but Benoit and McCabe look really good. Again, I think Gio and Brody did not look that good themselves, but the other defensemen I thought looked fine here tonight. I loved Benoit taking a run at Marchment. I loved McCabe taking runs at Marchment. You get goals from your big boys. They showed up. I think the fourth line, look, we didn't talk about it through the stream here tonight. They don't get on the board points-wise. Hey, you can fight with me all you want on this one. I'm willing to go head-to-head with people. I think the fourth line was actually good tonight. It's something that I talked about where I was like getting pissed with Keefe because people are like, well, you can't trust them. You can't put the fourth line out there. They can't play minutes. They can't play in their D zone. And I kept saying like, okay, fine. Find ways to get them into the neutral zone. Find ways to get them at offensive zone blue lines. Find ways to get them into the offensive zone on draws. Like you get your first line out there, you get your second line out there. There's another draw in the offensive zone, and Dallas puts out their third or their fourth line. Why can't you put your fourth line out there? Like, why can't you find a time to do that? I think that that's like a fine time to use the fourth line. I think that they played well here tonight. They felt pretty good in the offensive zone where it's like, hey, they're not the most dangerous, but it felt like they were playing most of their time in the offensive zone versus the defensive zone. I don't know. I was fine with the fourth line tonight. I was fine with the level of play. I think that there was some good opportunities created by the third line again. Yet again, though, you want to see your third line and you want to see Bertuzzi and Nyes get on the board and score goals and get points. That's just where I'm at. A- on the night. That's my grade. Guys, that's going to do it for tonight's stream. I appreciate everyone who tuned in here. I appreciate everyone who has watched, liked, subscribed, continue to support the channel, helped me continue to grow. So thank you guys very much for that. But that's going to do it for me. Also, by the way, I see who got the belt. It was McCabe, I believe, got the belt. That's going to do it for me for tonight's stream. This is being Game 49 against the Dallas Stars, winning this one 5-4 in what was a pretty exciting game, truthfully, for this Leafs team here tonight. So, thanks to everyone who tuned in. The Leafs win this one 5-4 and move to 26-15-8 on the season. Thanks for tuning in, and keep believing.